Recording for anyone. Never mind.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. We're going to give everyone just another minute to join, and then we'll get started. All right. Hello and welcome to this webinar. We are talking all today about how to create engaging classrooms using technology. My name is Catherine Teal. I'm the Director of Marketing here at KIDM, and I am joined by two amazing educators, Heather McMillan and Julia Wilson. I'm going to give them just a moment to introduce themselves. Heather, why don't you take it away?
All right. Hey, everybody. My name is Heather McMillan. I am the lead math turnaround specialist for Schools of Innovation, which is like a tiny school district within the really big school district of Metro Nashville Public Schools.
And Julia?
I'm Julia Wilson. I am a 8th year math teacher. I also have 2 years of science. Sorry for the announcements. We're finishing school here. And this is going to be my 3rd year using KIDM in the classroom.
Awesome. Thanks for joining right after school. We really appreciate it. I love the classroom. All right, so today we are talking about how technology can really augment your classes. Obviously, it is something that is just so critical to today's students, and it's part of their world. So I'm going to lead you through just a few points, and then I'm going to turn it over to Heather and Julia, who are going to share their experience with Metro Nash and all of the amazing things that they're doing, how they have been so successful in incorporating technology all the way from their planning phase through how they're assessing its implementation right now. So I mentioned I am the director of marketing here at KIDM, but wasn't always in marketing. I was actually a teacher in middle school for 8 years. I taught literacy. And then I was a middle school administrator for another 4. And during that time, I led 3 different schools through the transition from that time period where you had a computer lab that everyone scrambled on, and they signed up on Sign Up Genius like a month out, and you just hoped your lesson plans like hit when that time period was, to one-to-one devices. And it was an amazing experience. And I have seen how transformational technology can be, not only to students, but also to teachers in all of the work that they're doing. Some of those things here are listed, like being able to better understand your students. If you've been in the classroom for a few years, you have those gut feelings. You kind of know what you should be doing next, but it's based on experience and not necessarily all of those amazing people who are in your classroom in front of you. So technology gives you that data to back up those gut feelings. And we have some incredible capabilities where you can get real-time data as students are completing assignments to make some really quick shifts in your lessons. It opens up channels for communication. You think about accessibility and for all of your students, but also there are students in your classroom that are just, I remember I had kids who were just anxious, like they never wanted to raise their hand, but I knew they had remarkable things to share with me. So technology gives you the ability to have back channels so that they can still be part of the conversation. You can get all voices into the room. And finally, it gives teachers time back. I kind of relate it to real mail versus email. Like I live in a place where it snows. So for real mail, I have to walk all the way down the street, get my mail, come back, open everything up, sort it, recycle it, do whatever I need to respond to. All of that time taken versus email, it just being right there and I'm able to access it. In the end of that time, the communication ends up being the same, but the amount of time in my day that I've taken up is remarkably different. And it can be that same way with teaching. Like What does lesson planning look like? Does it look like scrambling through a bunch of different teachers' guides or having to make copies and all of that? All that takes up your time. If you're able to do it digitally much, much quicker, then you've given yourself back like an hour a day, and think of the impact you can have then. So just a few things from my experience that has been really remarkable. Now, something that is new, was not my experience, but I really wish it was the ability to like multiply the teacher's presence in the classroom. I remember when I used to have stations in my class, and I would be sitting with a group of kids and everyone else is working, and I have to trust that it's going well, or I have to trust that they will advocate for themselves if they get stuck and not just get off task. Imagine now you have the ability to have a screen next to you and to click in as you're meeting with a small group to see how other students are doing so you can respond really quickly. I wish I had that capability. So all of these things that I mentioned are part of KIDM, including other things too, which we might hear some of today. So what is KIDM? KIDM is a really powerful solution that unites high quality instructional materials with these dynamic digital capabilities. On your screen right now is a few of the different curricula products that we support, but more are added every day. So KIDM takes those high quality materials, and then that digital capability looks like easier lesson planning, easier assigning out of activities and such. Student engagement, we put in instructional tools and student tools that encourage voice and choice. For example, like if you are teaching math and you want students to explain their thinking, you ask them to write it out. What if they're not a good writer? Is that now a barrier to understanding how their mathematical thinking is happening? What if they could record a video or draw a picture or take a photo? These are things that they can do. We have real-time data, like I've mentioned, and then something pretty remarkable called curriculum ownership, where schools and districts are able to take that high-quality curricula and create a localized version. So if you have specific initiatives that your district is working on, you can add teacher notes, you can add student scaffolds, you can change questions around, and then share it out across the board. So KIDM is really remarkable. I know, like as a past educator, I only work for companies that I'm like, I believe in this. And this is one where I just see things that are amazing happening. So that is the end of what I am going to talk about with KIDM right now, but I want to turn it over to Heather and Julia, who are going to share a bit about their story about Metro Nash Public Schools.
All right. Hi, everyone. So a little bit about our school district. We are in Metro Nashville Public Schools, which is the second largest district in the state. Of course, the state of Tennessee, I'm sure some of you guys are coming from much larger districts than us. And so we have basically about 70 elementary schools, 29 middle schools, and 23 high schools, a couple alternatives and specialty schools as well. Currently, we have about 132 languages in our schools, not counting English. 48% of our school, or 48 of our schools actually are classified as reward, which is considered in the state of Tennessee our top schools. And then we have 18 schools that are labeled priority schools, which is who we work for. So we work for a subdivision called Schools of Innovation. And we have the dubious honor of being just priority schools. And so my background is mostly in middle and high school math. So I'm going to apologize now to anyone who might not be middle school or high school math. But you can predict, as in most places, our priority schools are schools that have been traditionally marginalized. We have a couple middle schools that's kind of cool that were historically Black high schools at one time, and they've been converted to middle schools. We have a huge population of multilingual learners and students with disabilities. And with the recent shifts in COVID, we've been experiencing in Tennessee a huge transition of people moving from outside of the state and outside of our country. So we're also starting to see who our students and our communities are starting to change a bit. Julia, do you want to add anything to that?
No, I think you got it. I think you got everything we do for MMPS and SOI.
All right. So for us, this is our third year with Kidum, and I'm super excited about it. We actually started in 2021, right as we were returning to in-person. And I'm just going to say, I really wish we had Kidum when we were not in person. But we got involved with Kidum when we did a temporary math adoption of Kendall Hunt illustrative math. We were in this weird stopgap period of 2 years where we didn't have a curriculum because the state put off the math adoption due to COVID. So we brought in Kidum. It was a challenge, between returning to in-person, almost having to teach kids how to redo school in some ways, in a lot of ways, and just all the emotional and mental health needs that came with that. And so we just did what we could, and we muddled by. Julia was one of my first adopters, and she jumped into it that very year. Last year, we engaged a little bit more. I think as teachers saw success, there were more teachers coming on board. And then this year has been a huge year for us already. We're finishing our fourth week of school literally today. And so this year, we have new state math standards. It was a state adoption year. And so our teachers in our district, at least for middle and high school, chose to go with Open Up, which I'm super thrilled about. And so with that adoption, our district moved to a district-wide adoption of Kidum. So our teachers are absolutely ecstatic because they are actually ahead of the game for once. And so they get to be in the driver's seat. So this year, with a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of excitement, our teachers in our schools have actually made the decision to really embrace Kidum and take it to the next level this year.
What does that look like for you, like taking it to the next level?
Well, we can talk about that in the other slides. I think the other slides does that. So
got it.
Yeah.
So this year, my word for my math teachers in my schools this year is being intentional, and really basing every decision on why are we doing this? Why are we doing this in service to kids? Why are we doing this in service to teachers? What is the outcome that we want in every decision we make? So even when we think about the most simple, basic things, like giving a kid an exit ticket, why are we giving kids an exit ticket at the end of the lesson? Like, what is our intent? What is our outcome? Not that we're just giving kids an exit ticket for the sake of giving them an exit ticket. So the quote on the next slide about being intentional is really making deliberate choices about what's most important to us. And so I really love this quote because this is my goal for my schools and my teachers this year, right? Like making our moves intentional with the intent of growing our students and moving them to where they're being successful academically. So I'm gonna just pause and let anyone who wants to read that, go ahead and read that for a second. And then whenever you're ready, Catherine, we'll just dive in. So we've decided we're gonna start the year with two aspects involving Kidum. One is planning, and the other one is our cool downs or exit tickets. That's where we're starting. Though we have teachers like Julia who are going to go and take it further without even waiting for me to go like, hey, let's move on to the next step. So we've actually rephrased district-wide our planning process to be lesson and unit internalization, meaning we have a fabulous curriculum. We have got a curriculum that provides equitable access, that addresses misconceptions, that supports teachers with asking those critical key questions. There's so much in this curriculum. Like teachers don't need to jump onto Teachers Pay Teachers or do Google searches trying to find additional resources. It's right there. So for us, it's really rather than having to plan and spend time searching for those materials, our teachers now have time to internalize what that means for them, and more importantly, what that means for their students. So we've taken the stand that we're going to use our curriculum with Open Up and Kidem with what we call integrity. We're not going to be we're not going to worry about fidelity. We're not going to worry about is everyone on page 10 on day whatever, are they doing it completely scripted? But really, are we using that curriculum? And then based on who we know our kids are, based on what we know our kids need, what are we doing to support them? So it's kind of like being a chef in a restaurant, right? We've got these great recipes that we know our customers are going to love, but what are we going to do to tweak them to meet their personal taste, to provide that customization piece for them? And so our process has our focus questions are what do we want students to know and why is it important? And can our students learn this information a different way? If so, how? As part of our process, we're using backwards design, and we've been doing that for a few years. So we're going to continue to do that. We embed what is known in math as the 5 practices. Because of who our students are, we also really encourage teachers to use universal design principles and math language routines. And I think the biggest shift for us this year is instead of using the printed materials or instead of using the printed publisher's platform to plan, we're choosing to use Kidem as our primary planning tool, which is turning out to be, I don't know, I think it's a game changer so far. Again,
It has been a game changer.
Game changer. So go for it, Julia.
Being able to plan online for starters is a different ball game. So as a 8th year teacher, this is my 9th year currently, having to carry a backpack full of stuff home to and from, that gets tiresome, as we all know, and especially all the papers we have to grade and all of those things. And with Kidem, you don't have to do that anymore because it's all right there on the platform. And you don't even have to grade the papers if you don't want to, because Kidem can do that for you as well. There is just so many different things that it offers that is just a stress relief for teachers. And Heather can amount to this too. When I first started with Kidem, I hated it. I was like, I didn't understand. Like, this is just so much so fast. We have no curriculum. How are we supposed to implement this? It was just they were coming back from COVID. And then finally, when I sat down and I realized this is everything that we could ever hope for as a teacher in one place. We're not going a million different places to find all these resources that we need, because that was me. I was going everywhere to find the best of the best to scaffold for my students who are walking into the classroom that don't speak any English yet, or my other students in the classroom that are GATE, that are so advanced that I need differentiated learning to keep them occupied and to keep them ready for advanced curriculum future-wise. So these practices help, and Kidem breaks it down for you to be able to even grab activities and make them your own, to even adapt that process of, this is the prerequisite for this lesson. You can go into Kidem and you can pull the prerequisite in, and you can use it as like a warm-up for your students to see if they even match that prerequisite before you even get started. Maybe you need to do a mini lesson. I know I have to do that this morning actually for my students. We just did congruency, and we did similar figures from a 7th grade curriculum that I was able to pull from Kidem to do that, to build that scaffold. So it's really it's really an amazing platform to just be able to lesson plan and to unit plan and spiral planning as well through the schools. It's definitely something that you can content plan through all of your levels with to make sure that you are getting the best for all.
So it sounds like one of the ways that you're using it is when you're planning, you're able to actually on the spot tweak and adjust activities and
Yes.
questions right then and there instead of print off a copy, white it out,
Yep.
or
You
handwrite
can
it back in
also,
and make photocopies.
right. And then I can add questions too for my more advanced, or I can simplify questions, not taking anything out that they need, but just simplifying it or chunking it for students that have accommodations and modifications. Those are all things that you can do inside the platform, and you don't have to print it off, cut it out, paste it to this one, paste it like you were saying. And then also, you can do this with their tests that are on there as well. You can chunk it out. You can make a quiz. You don't have to exactly use everything that is just pre-made for you, even though you can walk in there and just use the pre-made stuff, which is absolutely wonderful. I do that all the time, and no need to, fix something if it's not broke. But I love to add in my own little emojis or something just to show my little personality. And I know that I've been teaching my math department to do that as well. But it's just something that Kidem gives you to be able to modify it for your own students, so they can incorporate that.
And one of the things that I've noticed, and I just literally this week discovered this, as I was helping a teacher at one of our schools, brand new teacher, do some backwards planning for an upcoming unit. We were looking at the unit assessment that's available with our curriculum with Open Up. And she discovered looking on Kidem, which we did not find in the print materials or, the publisher's website, that when we looked at it, it was really cool because the questions then aligned back to the lessons. So she was able to go through and as she's still learning her content, she's like, oh, okay, I'm going to need to really focus on that particular lesson because that's going to be one of the key lessons. That's going to be one of the lessons that I want you to come back and plan with me. And so that's been like a huge thing for teachers with backwards design and using some of these resources. Like we only have a limited amount of time and it's never enough, let's be honest. For them to really hone and target what is critical and essential versus what's nice if we can get to it. And so that's been really cool to see teachers as they're unit planning before they're even getting into the daily lessons. They're already starting to target, like, these are the key lessons I want to explore beforehand and that I'm going to want support around. So that's been huge for us.
That's phenomenal. Do you want to talk a little bit about the cool down tickets?
Sure. So cool downs, the Open Up curriculum in Kidem has a cool down or exit ticket pretty much for every lesson, which is fabulous. And they're short, they're easy, they're great formative assessments. But we've been modifying them a bit. At least some of our teachers have been modifying them a bit. I don't know if you've done this, Julia, or not, where, we might take a question out or add a question in, or we've been adding in some cases, a metacognitive question, right? Like, for example, on a scale of 1 to 5, how comfortable are you with where you're at in your learning, right? 5 being, I've got this and I can teach it, right? 4 maybe being, I got it, but don't ask me to teach. All the way down to 1 of like, wait, what? Please back up. And so that's been really great because for teachers, they don't have to go home and grade and spend their time, their evening, when they could be spending their time with their spouses, their family members, their friends. They can pull up that metacognitive question and there's the results right there, boom. So they already know where kids perceive that they're at. And then looking at whatever other question is there, how the kids actually did with it. And so we're finding it saves a ton of time in terms of what am I going to do tomorrow? Who am I going to group together for whatever activity I'm going to be doing? So, I mean, I don't know. I would say teachers are probably saving at least an hour a day, if not more, just on looking at those formative assessments that are already.
Yes. I can agree to that. I think, to be honest, I have been saving so much time using Kidim where I'm not even bringing anything home anymore. I'm able to get majority of my stuff done during my 50 minutes of planning during the week, and we have 50 minutes, 3 sets of 50 minutes per week at my current school, and then 1 50-minute set aside for content. But with that being said, the for sure the exit tickets and the cool down, not only is it amazing because it can, you can do a quick grade with it, but you can also give immediate feedback. That immediate feedback gets the students to understand where they need to be at for tomorrow's lesson. What can I do? I have a lot of students that'll come up to me and they'll say, Miss Wilson, what can I do to make sure that I'm not behind for tomorrow? And if you haven't done the practice problems yet, we'll start with the practice problems. And that also goes into being able to reinforce that lesson objective, which is exactly what the exit tickets do in Kidim, and they last 5 to 10 minutes. I have had some that go more than 10 minutes, but it is because the students really were benefiting from those deep, higher thinking questions that are on the exit tickets, but also the exit tickets are framed in such a way where they're not standoffish. So like in a lot of other curriculums or other classes that we've ever taken, we know if we have an exit ticket, it's always sometimes so deep that you don't know where to start, or that's just so involved where you have just no idea, like as a piece. Here, it actually gives you specific points to go through, and I've taught my kids to annotate, annotate your directions, which you can also do on Kidim, especially through Lesson Launch, which is what we do all the time, and they absolutely love that feature too. And it's just for you as a teacher to be able to look back and see the data and be able to see also the students are engaged, they're still on Kidim, they're still doing what they're supposed to be doing. You can see all that through that app, that platform as well. So I think those things also will save you a bunch of time, especially when you're trying to reconvene and making sure people are doing what they're supposed to be doing. It's cut down on a lot of behavioral issues in my classroom, on top of just the structure.
How's that helped you with behavior?
Kidim has helped tremendously with behavior, because when you give somebody feedback immediately, they can see, oh, I need to work on this instead of playing around. Or I have some students that will see the grade and they don't know what to do from there, and they can ask questions, or I can approach them and say, what do you have questions about pertaining to this? Why do you think that you got this grade? What can we do better? What can we improve on? Whereas, as a teacher, let's be honest, sometimes it takes me all weekend to be able to grade a whole stack of papers for, 120 kids. And then we've already had 3 days in between that lesson, and now we're moving on to another lesson. You don't have to do that with Kidim.
I can remember those moments where I tried exit tickets. This was like 9 years ago, but and you
Right.
get a stack of 140 of them, and you
Yeah.
feel like I need to look at all of this, but chances are like I can't. I can look through like 20 and get an idea of what's going on and then kind of move on. So moving to like assessing the impact that Kidim has had, can you share some of your thoughts there?
So because our schools have to do everything better, faster, Um, we tend to focus on what our schools call 5D vision, which comes from the Center for Educational Leadership. And for teachers, that means that we give teachers one tiny bite-sized thing to work on, which right now, for most of our teachers, it's teaching our new curriculum with integrity and really focusing on lesson launch, right? Getting those kids to come in and feel welcome and want to engage in that learning. And so, like, one of the nice things for me, Kidem has just given me access to like some of the premium district features. And it's been awesome because like I'm not going to use it as a gotcha. Like that's not my thing. Like but you know, if I can jump on and help a teacher look at those exit tickets and then think about what they're going to do the next day or how they might want to start their day off, like that's huge, right? So instead of just like, here's my seating chart, let's turn and talk to each other. And maybe you don't want those two kids talking to each other for whatever reason. Like it's allowed us to like have that moment where we can be so much more intentional. I'm going to put these three kids together because they all know Spanish and that's their first language and that's their level 1 EL students, or you know, things like that. So that's been a big impact for us. One of the features I've been loving is learning and watching kids use online features in their native language, right? Because I mean, our most common language in Nashville is Spanish, but we have so many other languages that there's no way a teacher can be fluent in every single language. And because it's online and it's web-based, we can just add the extension for that language, even though Tennessee's an English only state, but we won't say that. But like it suddenly becomes accessible to the kids because we can turn on the language for them. We can have them hear it with auditory rather than just reading or writing, because a lot of our kids who come from other countries, honestly, they're illiterate in their native language. They haven't had educational experiences. And so we're using a lot of that to help assess. And so like when a kid can take a test and it's read aloud to them in their native language, like we're no longer testing whether or not they know English. We're now testing, do they know their content? And so we're using a lot of that. I'm hoping in October, we'll get to move to lesson synthesis and really like, what are the kids putting together at the end of a lesson? Like, are they really being able to connect their ideas from prior learning? Are they able to preview what might come next? And so for us, we do a lot of our work from research. We take research-based approaches. And so we've been specifically using Systems for Instructional Improvement, which is out of Vanderbilt, kind of as our primary driving factor in terms of like assessing what do kids know, how do they know it, and how do they feel about it, right? Bringing in that social emotional piece, that's now a big part of education. You to jump in, Julia.
For those who don't know, have you used Lesson Launch? Can you say anything about that?
I love Lesson Launch. So Lesson Launch is where you already have the curriculum that pulled. It's already there for you. And you decide which, like the warm up or the activities that you want to do. And it actually pushes it out to the students on their screen. They don't have to go around clicking for anything. It pops up and ask them, are you ready for your launch? And then they'll click continue or go. And it starts them off right there with the warm up or whatever you have chosen. And it keeps them on track. It keeps them on a correct pace. So you already know that your pacing is going to be right because you can push whatever out to them at what specific times. And I love that feature because if you are not structured and if you are not timed based, you're going to lose them. But also that's where behavior issues once again comes into your classroom and classroom management takes over. So you have to be structured and you have to have that time sensitive in there, and Kiddom gives you that. It also gives you the insights. We kind of hit on that a little bit earlier, but I wanted to jump in and say that the improvement is there if you use the analytics. Kiddom, after you do a lesson launch and you can go through the warm-ups and the activities, and you can see exactly what they're doing, and you can click on their screen and give them immediate feedback and say, hey, what do you think about drawing a line from A to point B? What do you think about this? And you can have a conversation right there with that student, and they might be sitting right across the room from you, but nobody else is going to know that you're having a conversation with that student. And that's what I absolutely love. It gets my students that never talk in the classroom, or who are afraid to speak, or don't even have the ability to speak because they don't know the language. It automatically can transcribe too. And then moving forward, at the end, you can still use that data to be able to incorporate developing, understanding if they're developing, what stage are they at? Are they mastery approaching? Are they exceeding? And you can use that to develop for the next lesson launch. So I absolutely love lesson launch. I use it almost every single day, to be honest. It just takes so much time away from having to copy paper, printing all of these things out, or go get your books. And it's a big mess trying to get books, and you don't have to worry about that. It's just grab your laptop,
Paper
have a
with
seat.
no name.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, we have about 5 more minutes, so let's talk about your next steps just a bit.
So our next steps is in our priority schools, we do common unit assessments, looking for specifically for best practices, using data to make decisions about, as we move forward, what supports are we going to need. And so I am super excited because I hate looking and compiling the data for common unit assessments. It's a huge amount of my time that by putting them on Kiddom, it's going to be so much easier. Like, I'm going to be able to go into those analytics and just, I can look at a school site, I can look at teacher, I can drill down to one kid and look at what the needs of one student might be. So to me, it's also an opportunity with doing that we can build teacher capacity, right? Like, let's identify where the success is and let's build on those successes. Let's learn from those teachers who are doing amazing work.
Couldn't have said it better. Are there any parting words that either of you have for our listeners?
I didn't think I would be a fan of using technology. I've been in education long enough to remember not having any technology. And I think when it's done intentionally, when it's done thoughtfully, with a clear outcome and goal in mind, it can be a game changer. It's let me get my life back.
The same thing. I definitely would say that, especially I'm a mom of 2 young boys. And so being able to just know that the Kiddom has me, like, I don't have to worry about all this prep when I get home, and I can actually have family time. That's a huge thing as a teacher, because that, 2 years ago for me was not a thing. There was none of that. But my, I guess, last parting words were just, when you get into Kiddom, take a deep breath and start small, and then start exploring out to all of the things that it can offer. Because when you start going through and you see the insights of everything, some people get overwhelmed, and I've seen that in my own school. But others like me who love and thrive with technology, I'm like, yes, give me everything, give it all to me. So just take Kiddom and embrace it, and just keep an open mindset, and just be okay with not having all the answers. And if you need help and assistance, Kiddom is very, very open and quick to reply in any issue. I love their support. Their support team's amazing.
Yes, we have made some crazy asks of Kiddom, and all of it seems to happen.
That's awesome. Well, thank you, ladies, so much for your time today and all of your insights. I hope everyone who joined us was able to glean some amazing tidbits out of this. If you are not using Kidem right now and you are interested in learning more about our product, please send us an email at marketing@kidem.co and I will personally respond to you and get back to you soon. Thank you again, everyone. I hope you have a terrific Thursday afternoon.
Thank you.